Hello and welcome back to my space. My name is Bella. I am an intuitive reader and I am also about to graduate from my Bachelor of Psychology and Justice. So yeah, I just wanted to quickly introduce myself again. I know I've already done my little intro video, but I realized I didn't really go in too deep about who I am and what I'm doing. And I think I will in another video, but today I wanted to talk about overthinking. And even though there is this more psychology side of it, I kind of want to talk more about my own experiences and see where we go from there. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed today's video, and yeah, all my love. Let's get started. So, overthinking. What is it? To me, overthinking can come in so many different ways, shapes and forms. It can be intrusive thoughts. It can be obsessively going over and over and over something. It can be spiraling. It can be anxiously just, again, obsessing and just overthinking a situation. There's so many ways to describe it. So it's a very common experience. But I feel like it's also something that we can manage, and it's something that we can work on, and something that we can prevent from affecting us the way that some people do, the way I have. For years and years and years, I just put myself into a little box, and I view myself as a very sensitive, anxious overthinker. And I always made it pretty obvious that I just had a lot of thoughts going on in my head, which I did. I had so many thoughts going on in my head, and it made it really difficult sometimes to either make decisions, to engage in conversations, whether it was with friends or people I don't know. It made it really difficult to just understand how I was feeling properly and how I wanted to actually work through situations or problems or anything that came up in my life, because there was just this overbearing amount of thoughts that would just consumed me. And it was difficult. It was really, really difficult, and I still struggle with it sometimes, and I know so many people do, and it can be so debilitating and so frustrating, but it can also make you feel like that's just the way you are, and that's just what your brain does, and sometimes it is like that. But from my experience and what I learned about myself, and when I've taken years of work to better understand why I overthink, where it comes from, and if there is any way that I can manage it or not feel as debilitated as I did. Because there'd be times where I would just, for example, I'd be in a conversation with my friends, and out of nowhere I would start to just wonder if I had said something wrong, if I had said something that wasn't funny enough. Maybe I said a joke and people didn't laugh as much as I wanted them to, which happens. It just happens. But in my head, I would take it so personally, and I would just start to crumble. I wouldn't be talking about it. It would all be up in here, and I would just be questioning every single thing I said, and then I would question every interaction I've had, and then I would question my entire friendship with that person and wonder how many times I had done something so embarrassing, or how many times have I just fooled myself, or how many times I've just been annoying and frustrating and gross, and whatever thoughts that came up like that. Just so self-critical and so self-demeaning and just so, again, debilitating. And I would just spiral in my head. And I would just sit back on wherever I was sitting with my friends, and I would just go into a little hole in myself, and I wouldn't talk for the rest of the night. And that happened a lot. It happened with family, happened in some situations. And sometimes I would push through and just pretend and just have the anxious overthinking going on, but I would just be, still be my normal talkative self. And God, I hated it. I hated it so much, and I hated feeling so consumed by my thoughts and my feelings, and especially all these anxious ones that made me feel like complete and for so long I believed them. I thought I was a worthless piece of For so long I thought I was just not important, not funny, not intelligent, not anything good, anything that I wanted to be, or anything that I admired about others. So obviously a lot of self-love was needed, and I've done the work for it, but the overthinking was still an issue. Even though I love myself, I still had all these thoughts come up, and they could easily spiral me again. And after a while of a lot of self-awareness, taking the time to meditate and just be with myself sometimes, taking the time to just imagine all these voices kind of like lining up, and I would, rather than just going with those thoughts and going straight into believing them and being like, yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. I would question those thoughts. Say, for example, if I thought, oh, I'm so not funny. I'm so unfunny. Rather than going with it and going, yeah, that's so true. Like, I'm so not funny. Oh my God, that time that I made a joke that no one laughed. That time where people ridiculed me. That time people made fun of me for that joke. Whatever it was, I could spiral, right? Or I had a second option and I can look at that thought and I'd be like, why would I not be funny? I'd give an example. Okay, like, cool, maybe this instance people just didn't get it. I would start to question that thought. I would start to be more rational rather than the emotional attachment that I had to being funny, or whatever the situation was, or the emotional attachment I then applied to that thought that came through. So rather than spiraling, which I could have done and I have done countless times, I decided to question the thought and where it came from. And it wasn't easy and it took a lot of practice, but that's what I do nowadays. Whenever I find a thought that comes up that seems a little bit self-critical, seems a little bit, maybe not out of the blue, I want to say, but seems a little bit, doesn't feel good, rather than going ahead and believing it straight away, like I always would, I would take a step back. I would look at that thought, really look at it, and go, why are you here? Where did you come from? So rather than instantly believing these thoughts that came up, whether they were intrusive or not, or whether they were me reacting to a particular situation, conversation, relationship, whatever it may be, rather than believing it straight away and just going with it and letting myself be spiral and be consumed by additional self-loathing thoughts and self-critical thoughts, or I would question where it was coming from, why it was there, and maybe I would reflect on how this thought could make me feel. So if this thought could bring me anxiety, why was it doing that? If this thought could bring me sadness, why was it doing that? What attachments do I have to this thought form? What attachments do I have to this perception? What attachments do I have to this particular thing that is popping into my head? And I would look at it that way. Now again, that maybe not can be applied to every single situation, but rather than reacting straight away, as I'm just like, I feel like innately just do, we react with emotions because we're human, that's what we do. Before I let it go too far, I just try to take a step back and just really analyze that and be aware of what's going on. And sometimes these emotions have to go through you and that's okay. But there's a way to stop it from debilitating you in the way that it can. You can feel the sadness, you can feel the anxiety that comes. That's part of it. But I feel with that, you're meant to learn something from that anxiety, learn something from that sadness, learn something from that embarrassment that comes up, and understand it and why it's here and what it's trying to show you. For example, me needing to be funny, me wanting to be valued as a funny person, if I felt that I didn't say something funny enough, or I felt that I had said something wrong or a bit embarrassing, and that's when those thoughts will start to come in, I'd really look at those thoughts, like I said, and I'd really try to understand why I have this need to be funny, why I value being funny. And then I would look at if it's other people's perceptions that upset me, or if it's my own perception that upset me. Do I not believe I'm funny enough? Really analyze it that way. Or if I am more basing my perception of myself on the opinions of others. Because if that's the case, well, that's just not true. The only person that gets to know you and gets to judge you is yourself. But again, we don't need the debilitating, overthinking style of judgment. We don't need that. That's not good for us. It's really good to be self-aware and to critique ourselves and to always want to improve. But if those thoughts are constantly bringing you down, those overthinking cycles and spiraling thoughts are bringing you down all the time, then how are you ever going to get better? Because you constantly believe that you're doing something wrong. You constantly believe that you're not good enough, that you're failing, that you're embarrassing, that you're this. How can you ever improve if you constantly will view yourself in that way anyway? And that's where the self-love and stuff comes in. But I want to mostly overthinking how you can manage that better and how I've managed that better. And again, it's the self-awareness, it's the stepping back, it's the meditation every day that I do. It's the just being. And then taking time to be aware of those thoughts that come up, understand them, appreciate where they come from, and then later on I just appreciate the thought in itself and appreciate what it's taught me about myself. Parts of myself that I need to value more, parts of myself that I need to love more, parts of myself that I need to praise myself on more. And if we're, again, overthinking maybe people and situations and our relationships with them, It can be, what judgments are we placing on those people? What judgments are we placing on these relationships? What attachments have we got going on with these relationships? What do they mean to us? And how does it make us feel about ourselves? It's always about us. It always is. There's something going on in here that makes us judge and overthink about certain situations that maybe that are external to us. It's always coming from in here. And again, that's okay. We're human. That's what we do. But avoiding the spiraling and the debilitating feelings that come with overthinking is what we're trying to do here. So again, these thoughts are going to come. They just do. It's about self-awareness. It's about taking the time to be and being present with yourself, and then getting it out in some other way, rather than letting it sit up here all the time and driving you crazy. If you need to get these thoughts out of you to better understand them, that's okay. Journaling, songwriting, poetry, some sort of activity, or venting to someone else, or recording yourself right now and just speaking it out and then watching it back later. Sometimes the emotions need to come out first, and that's okay as well. But give yourself a chance to just breathe it, to just breathe through it. Our brain can always try to hurt us. In fact, it does a really, really good job at doing it, trying to trick us into thinking that we're worthless, that we don't do anything good, that we're a whole bunch of things that just aren't true. And rather than falling into that pit of despair and believing all those thoughts, challenge them, question them. Why are they true? Why are those thoughts true? Do you believe every opinion you hear? No. Why do you believe every opinion that goes through your head? It just doesn't make sense. I'll probably do another video on this at some point. I really hope that my experiences have helped in some sort of way, helped give you some sort of insights into overthinking and maybe how you can better manage your overthinkingness. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them down below. I really hope you enjoyed today's video, and I'm sending you all my love and light.